You know, James Baldwin, he completely changed American literature. And yet, for decades, we've told two totally different stories about him. It's like a puzzle. So today, we're going to try and solve it. How did this incredibly integrated thinker get split right down the middle?
Okay, so this is it. This is the puzzle of James Baldwin, right here. For so long, people have seen him as two different writers. On one side, you've got the essential, just searing voice of Black America. And on the other, the groundbreaking author of this Parisian love story that became, a cornerstone of gay literature.
So the big question is, how did this even happen? How does a writer this whole, this integrated get split in two? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unlock today. And we're going to use the really powerful ideas from a scholar named Matt Brims to do it.
Okay, so let's get into it. For decades, critics and readers too basically shoved Baldwin into one of two boxes, and these boxes seemed totally incompatible. It was like you had to choose. Are you reading Baldwin the Black novelist or Baldwin the gay author? The idea that he could be both at the same time, it was almost unthinkable.
And here's a perfect example of how that played out. His first big novel, Go Tell It on the Mountain. It was hailed, and rightly so, as the definitive story of Black life in Harlem. But then, just a few years later, he comes out with Giovanni's Room. It has all white characters, it's set in Paris, and suddenly a lot of people just wrote it off as this curious little detour into gay life. As if it wasn't part of his real work.
So what this did was create this totally distorted picture of him by making everyone choose, is it about his race or is it about his sexuality? The critics basically forced this question on us. Which Baldwin are we reading? But, and this is the key, what if that's just the wrong question to be asking in the first place?
All right, so to solve this puzzle, we need a new way of looking at it. We need a new key, and that key is a concept that Matt Brims calls the queer imagination. Think of it as the tool that finally lets us see the whole, brilliant, and really complicated picture.
Now, the queer imagination, it's not just about who you are. It's not just about identity. It's a way of seeing. It's an artistic vision. It's the power to show these desires, these connections, the stuff that society pretends just isn't there. We're talking about ideas that were pushed right to the edge of what was even considered thinkable at the time.
And you know what? Baldwin himself put it perfectly. He talked about the evidence of things not seen. And that was his genius, right? He could take that evidence of what was invisible to most people and use it to build this powerful case for a much more complex and, frankly, a much more truthful reality.
So when you look at it this way, it totally reframes who he was. He wasn't just a spokesperson for one group or another. No, he was a visionary, an artist who literally had to invent a language for desires that the world didn't have words for, simply because the world was trying so hard to pretend those desires didn't exist at all. But it gets even deeper. Baldwin's vision takes us right into the heart of this puzzle, into something we can call the queer paradox. And trust me, this is where it gets really fascinating.
So this idea, it kind of challenges what we might expect. The queer paradox is this idea that queerness isn't some simple escape hatch from all the rules. It's not just about liberation and freedom. It's a constant, messy, complicated negotiation, and it's full of its own really surprising contradictions.
Let's break that down. On one hand, queerness is about radical freedom. It's about rejecting the norms and saying, hey, another world is possible. But, and it's a big but, on the other hand, it's always feeling the pressure from those very same norms. It's always at risk of being sort of pulled back in, reabsorbed, sometimes to the point where it starts to look a lot like the thing it was critiquing in the first place.
And that right there, that's the heart of the paradox. It's like a system of thought that is constantly turning back on itself. It's always questioning its own assumptions, always critiquing how it came to be. It's an incredibly powerful way of seeing the world for sure, but it is never, ever simple.
Okay, so how does a paradox like this actually play out in the real world? Well, we see a perfect example in this idea of queer utility, which is all about the way later generations needed and then used James Baldwin's legacy.
So picture this. It's the 1980s, the height of the AIDS crisis. You have a new generation of Black gay writers, people like the incredible Essex Hemphill, and they are desperately searching for a history, for a lineage. They needed to find proof that they weren't alone, that their desires had a place in the story. They needed a forefather. And yet, here's the paradox in action. Baldwin himself, he constantly rejected labels. He famously said, "You see, I am not a member of anything." He just refused to be a poster boy for any one group.
And this is the ultimate paradox, right? This is queer utility. A younger generation basically created him as the forefather they needed so badly. They made him useful in a way he himself actively pushed against his whole life. I mean, think about it. The very thing that made him such a powerful role model was his complete refusal to be a role model.
So let's bring it all back to the puzzle we started with. When you look at James Baldwin through this lens, you realize it was never about choosing a box to put him in. It wasn't black writer or gay writer.
The solution isn't picking a box. It's understanding how he just broke the boxes themselves. His work, that queer imagination we've been talking about, it shatters the categories. He forces us, he challenges us to see the connections between things, not the divisions that society is always trying to sell us.
And this really gets to the core of what he believed. I mean, listen to this quote from one of his last essays. For Baldwin, identity was never about these neat, separate categories. No way. It was about the messy, painful, beautiful, and absolutely undeniable ways we are all, every one of us, intertwined.
So in the end, Baldwin's legacy isn't just a story, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to us to resist the easy, simple story, to embrace paradox, to really truly learn to see the evidence of things not seen. So the final question isn't just about how we remember complex figures like him. It's about whether we're brave enough to see all that complexity in ourselves, and maybe even more importantly, in each other.